All right. Hey, Nick, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Yay. Well, today I am bringing on my friend Nick. He just released the audiobook for his first book, The 2 Hour Cocktail Party: How to Build Big Relationships with Small Gatherings. And because so many of you are struggling with how to form new relationships as we kind of step into this new relationship with alcohol, when so many of your old relationships were around drinking and cocktail parties and happy hour and socializing, Nick has a really great, super tried and true, very clear cut formula for creating these experiences where you actually bring people together. So I'm super glad you're here, Nick, because you're really going to lay down a really easy way for people to start increasing their circle.
Great. Good. I'm happy to talk about that. And I wrote a book called The 2 Hour Cocktail Party, but I don't even drink alcohol. So
So
that's
yeah,
fun.
so we're going to hold 2 hour mocktail parties in this group. How about we call it that for this segment?
That's perfect. I
Perfect.
actually worked with a Mormon couple who did that. And a lot of people don't drink alcohol. So you don't need it.
Yes. Okay. Well, we are going to detail all of that and how to throw an amazing mocktail party. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about, I was listening to your book this weekend and I love listening. You're a great narrator, by the way. You have such like a
Thanks.
fun, dynamic voice. And you talk about how you started to host these cocktail parties years ago and where you were at socially in that era of your life. And I think that a lot of listeners can relate to that. So can you tell us a little bit about who you were, like what your persona was when you decided to take on this endeavor and kind of why you just decided to step into being a host?
Yes. Okay. I moved to New York City. I did not know a lot of people. I wanted to meet people, and I was going to these networking events that were loud and crowded and dark, and I just wasn't getting the results I wanted. So instead of going to bad networking events, I decided to bring the party to me. At the time, I didn't drink alcohol, and I was having my birthday party. I said, okay, good excuse to try hosting my first party. And I was drinking tea. I still drink tea a lot. Oh my gosh. I actually want some tea right now. If we
Ooh,
were hanging out right now, I would be making you a cup of my favorite Japanese green tea. It's called kukicha, and it's like my daily driver. It's low in caffeine, but high in theanine, and it's so delicious. Amanda, I'm gonna make it for you.
okay. I'm taking you up on it. I love a hot tea.
Okay, good. Okay, so I said I'd have a tea party for my friends, not the political kind, like for real tea. And I invited them all over, and I opened up all this Darjeeling tea because I was in India and I brought it back. And we just had tea and we juggled and we played card games. And that was like my first big party that I had in New York City. And then from there, I started to host these events. I call them tea parties. And I'd invite new people I met, random people, and it was something different and fresh. And I think people like that.
Yeah. How were you, socially in terms of your confidence at that point in your life?
I remember the first time I was not socially confident. I would stand at the edges of parties. I remember the first time I talked to a stranger at a bar, and I guess I existed in this world. I was younger. I was stupid. I guess I'm still stupid. I didn't know that you could just talk to strangers at a bar, and I couldn't sleep that night. I was so excited. I like talked to somebody new and they engaged with me. And that I'm not saying that just to like be weird. I'm just saying that puts in perspective how
Mhm.
my life has changed over the last 15 years.
Yeah. So you decided that's a really bold move for someone who's like just discovering that you can approach strangers in public, which I honestly, I think many of my listeners will really relate to, especially going into new social engagements where they used to use alcohol as a lubricant. So now you're in this phase where you're like, I'm not just going to go talk to people. I'm going to gather people in a group together. What did that feel like the first time when you decided to kind of rip off that band-aid and just be the social hub instead of a spoke in the in the pattern?
So it's a gradual process. I think you don't just go to meeting strangers at the grocery store from nothing. And what I talk about is thinking about your core group first. Your core
Mm-hmm.
group are your five close friends. They're your people you work with. They maybe are your neighbors. They're people you feel comfortable and safe with. And once you get them to say yes to come to your party, then maybe you'll invite people that you know a little less well. And then maybe you ask them if they can bring a friend or something like that. And after hosting parties, after you know from that first party, because when I teach people now, I'm like a party therapist, and so many people have like bad party trauma that's
Mm-hmm.
real, and I have to work through that with them, which is just a funny hobby. But now I tell people your first party should be a low stakes affair. And so same thing for me. I just invite up my friends at my birthday. Then I invite someone I meet off the internet and we follow each other online. You DM a little. So it's not like going up to a stranger just yet. But once you host a lot of parties, I tell you, hosting parties like levels up your social skills so quickly
Mhm.
because you get to work the room and work groups in an environment that you feel safe and comfortable in your own home with your friends. I'll talk about it all day.
Oh yeah. Well, I actually didn't. I don't know if I missed this part in the book, but how do you avoid? I am someone, especially, or anyone who's socially awkward. You actually called it out in one way. You said something about not bringing kids to a party because then introverts will like gather to them. And I'm like, oh shit, I totally do that. That are dogs
Yes.
if I'm feeling super introverted. But
Yes.
if I'm also feeling introverted, one of the things I do is I try to keep myself busy with doing things. So cleaning and tidying. How do you,
Uh-huh.
as a host, keep yourself from dipping out of the context of the party and just being a doer?
You know what? I would challenge that. At my own party sometimes, I will sneak away into my bedroom and I will scroll Twitter on my phone and I will dip out of my own party sometimes because that's okay. A lot of people ask me, they're like, "Oh my gosh, did you have fun at your party?" And I'm like, no, that's not a good question. No, I didn't have fun. Of course I didn't have fun at my party. I don't host my party to have fun. Like if I want to have fun, I'll like go to the water park or I'll like watch Netflix and eat popcorn. Like I host a party to build relationships and to help my
Mm,
friends out. Like that's an investment in my relationships and I'm kind of working to build those relationships. That being said, at a party, I tidy, I clean, I do all that stuff. That's fine. That's fine. You can do that.
yeah. It's kind of a like a riff off of that the concept of when you feel most alone or when you feel most helpless, help someone else. So when you feel maybe a little
Yes.
socially dismal, help other people connect. And you are only going to
Yes.
make yourself a stronger connector by flexing that muscle.
Yes. Flexing that muscle, build our hosting muscles.
Yes. Well, one of the things that you discuss is that core group. So, inviting your core group to a party. And one of the biggest fears that my listeners and clients have is, I've kind of maybe grown apart from my core group because they were my party crew.
Yeah.
So, could you just off the cuff give us what you might tell someone who is having that fear of, oh, like I don't know if my core group is going to be down to come to a tea party or down to come to a party,
Uh-huh.
where it's not revolving around drinking. Or maybe you just debunk that and say, who cares? Maybe your party is a drinking party and it's no big deal.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Here's what I'll say. Consistently, from working with people to host a 2-hour cocktail party, I hear one, that they're shocked how much little people drink, that
Mm-hmm.
it's not about the alcohol, that it's about the people and the conversations. Even the idea, it's so crazy. You're going to host a cocktail party, but people aren't going to drink. I promise you, it's not about, but that phrase cocktail party
Mm,
encompasses in society today an easy gathering or a get together
yep.
that's low commitment, that's social, that's casual, that's a lot of little conversations. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why we use that phrase. It's not about the drinks.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was first hosting these parties, I would tell people, "Oh my God, I'm going to make the best old fashioned you've ever had in your whole life. You have to come over. It's going to be the best party." And I didn't know how to make an old fashioned. I just have like some whiskey and some bitters and seltzer, and nobody ever complained, right? But you overhype your party so that people come and then they're going to be happy because they get to meet people. Nobody teaches adults how to make new friends. And so that's why we host parties. And then
Yes.
if you're worried, are you still worried about thinking about like your friends or like what do you want now? What's helpful?
Yeah, and here I'll actually throw in a thing that sometimes that you do get to be in this period where you're rebuilding your friendships, where you are creating new circles of people. So, when you first started doing this, and many of the people who you mentioned in your book, they are starting these cocktail parties because they are new to town. They don't know
Yeah.
anyone. They don't have a core group. So, why don't you give us the spin on let's pretend you are new to town, even if
Yeah.
you are not. What
Yeah.
are you telling people to do in those scenarios in order to build that core invitee list?
First of all, if you're hosting a cocktail party with no alcohol, you're going to be the coolest person ever because not drinking is so trendy right now and
Mm-hmm.
it is so hot and everybody's talking about it. And I promise you, if you mention it to people, they're going to be like, "Oh, that's so true. Like, I don't even like to drink. I don't like to drink that much." I think you'll find a really cool group of people because the type of people that are thinking that way, I just, even on Monday, I read a thread from a friend of mine who hung out with Mr. Beast, the big YouTube star, all weekend. And he said of the 25 people that were in this VIP mastermind group, something like 19 of them didn't drink at all the whole weekend. They had alcohol, but he said he was shocked people didn't drink. And he came out of it like, I'm going to drink a lot less. These ultra people at the top of their careers are hardly even drinking when they're around other VIPs. If you're new to town, know that you moving there is a vote of affirmation for everybody who already lives there that they live in a good place. And so when you tell somebody, I just moved here, that is such a positive thing. It's like a compliment to them. Oh, I like your city. I moved here. I literally shifted my life. And so I tell people who are new to New York City, I'm always like, you need to milk that for all that it is worth, that you're new. You need to tell people that you're new. You need to make sure they know you're new and use that. Be like, hey, I'm new to town. I'm meeting all these interesting people. I'm hosting a little mocktail party or a flavored seltzer party. Would you like to come? Like, we're having a happy hour. Can I invite you? That's a little small thing, by the way, that there's a difference in saying, can I have your phone number and can I send you the information?
Yes, yes. So it's, can I invite you, not do you want to come, or can I have your number? It's, can I invite you? That's so important. I really love the different scripts that you offer throughout your book, because making it so simple for someone to make the ask. And sometimes making the ask is the most difficult part. It's like a mini pickup line that you have to offer someone, right? And so having that line ready to go is super helpful. So I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned in the book, so you have your core connections. And I really think I want to encourage you to, anyone who's listening, to not cut out or discount your current group of friends. Believe that they can step up and come into this new scenario, because you're going to hold a new container, and Nick's going to tell you how to create that container and what it'll look like. But then the other part is, you talk a little bit about loose connections or weak ties and the power of acquaintances in the book. Can you tell us a little bit more about what loose connections and weak ties are and why they're important?
Yes, absolutely. I will talk about loose ties. I want to talk about weak connections. I want to ask you, though, as you work with your clients, as you work with people that listen to this podcast, what advice do you give them for their existing social circle of people who drink? Because I want your advice as well. Would you tell them to host a party like this and not serve any alcohol, or have it available? Don't try to get preachy with the friends and let the friends make their decision. Or I feel like it's almost like a vegan dinner or something. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have so many different approaches that could work for different people, because it could be, hey, I'm going to host this party. I'm not going to provide any alcohol, but BYOB. And, we actually, you and I were at an event maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, a birthday party, where that was the jam. They provided non-alcoholic beverages, and other people loosely brought in cocktails, but I maybe saw like one White Claw here and there at that entire event. And it's really refreshing that when you say, hey, I'm going to have mocktails available, you bring whatever you want. A lot of people don't even bother, or they bring something really light and very, very low key. So I would say that as one, maybe just because maybe you don't even want to have booze in your house if you're really trying to cut that out. And the other is, know that this is just a reforming. And sometimes when you're reforming your social group and social connection, you have to reconsider if you want to keep, and you're going to be congruent with some of those old friends. So I wouldn't say to cut them out. I would still say to hold them with hope, because your relationship can shift forms. So invite them, and know that as you grow your social circle, either they're going to grow with you, or they will slowly fade away as you gather more people who are like-minded. So don't feel bad about inviting them. Like, feel confident to invite them, and know that they can step up into this container that you're creating, and be okay with them drinking. You're not trying to be preachy or change their habits, but also don't make it incredibly, don't put yourself out to make it incredibly easy, and format the party around them. Know that they can step up and be put on their big girl or boy pants and drink very lightly, or not drink at all if that's what everyone else is doing, because you're going to create, as Nick's going to share, such an awesome environment that it's going to limit. I think that one of the reasons we drink is because of this social anxiety, right? But because of the way you format your parties, it eliminates a lot of that. So we're going to get to that in a second.
And I like what you said of how maybe you don't want to have the alcohol in your house, but you could say BYOB. And so you could do something like, say like, hey, you're hosting a happy hour. And then you could say in the event invitation, which I think is so important, say like, Look, I'm going to have seltzer, juice, mixers. I won't have alcohol personally, but if you want to drink some, BYOB, and I can't wait to host you, right?
Yes, yes.
Some sort of message like that that's creating still an inclusive environment. And then I swear that you'll be so surprised how little folks actually drink. Okay, we were talking about weak connections, loose ties.
You got it.
We find out that people learn about business opportunities, romantic relationships, new jobs, everything through our acquaintances, through these loose ties or these weak connections, not through our best friends. Our best friends think about us, but they don't. It's just weird, right? That it's that random LinkedIn connection that you made literally 4 years ago who posts that they're hiring and you find a new job. It's that random friend that brings somebody to a birthday party that's their best friend, and it's like a new romantic interest. It's these loose ties and weak connections. And when you host parties like this that I talk about, you're going to build your network of acquaintances. And you're also going to sort of learn who you want to form deeper relationships with as well. I use parties like that because you get to connect with 20 people at once. In the time it takes to watch a Netflix movie, you get to build relationships, learn more about 20 different people.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what you do when you want to. Like I said, you provide so many really great scripts. So you kind of gave us a taste of what that looks like. But when you are crossing paths with these loose ties, I think that one of the things that I like that you said is it's so much easier to offer them this new contact or this loose tie or whomever it is, an invitation to an event versus inviting them for coffee. So can you tell us why and then what you say?
Yes. So let's think about someone who you want to build a relationship with. Generally, that person has something that you want. And generally, aspirationally, we tend to reach up. We tend to reach up to people that have more influence, more connection, more followers, more levels of attractiveness, whatever it is. We want to build relationships with people that we perceive are better than we are. And when you do that, a lot of times people say something like, oh, I'd love to pick your brain for coffee, or I'd love to do this. And that can be hard for people in demand. It's a time commitment. It's a big ask. One of my big things is like, don't host dinner parties. Dinner parties are too complicated. It's a locked in thing. It's very vulnerable. It's hard to facilitate. When you offer somebody to come to a cocktail party, one, they know that they're going to get some benefits out of it because they're going to meet some other people. And you're going to tell them, oh my gosh, I'm inviting all these cool friends, these people I've been meeting around town. It's a mix of old friends and new friends. And that for them is the benefit. You now get to give them the gift of a party invitation. And I promise you, no matter how popular somebody is, everybody wants to be invited to a party. Everybody wants that gift. And you get to give that gift of inviting somebody to a party.
Yes. So what does it sound like? Give us your favorite script for you've met someone who you think, wow, this person's really interesting. I'd love to get to know them.
Yeah.
I'm going to invite them to my next party. What does that script look like?
So let's say that I bumped into you at Casa de Luz. We started to chat about something. I'd be like, hey, I know this is kind of random, but my friends and I host these little happy hours with or without alcohol. For myself, I don't drink, but if you want to, you're welcome to bring some. Can I send you the information to the next one? We get a really good group of people together. It's super cool. It's just a way to make some new friends. And I'll say it like that. Can I get your information? It's just a way to make some new friends.
Yeah. And I would be like, hell yes, that sounds great.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah. That's so fun. And it's something that people are so intimidated by making the ask. I know a lot of the women I work with don't even want to make that ask for coffee, but you're right. When you have something that is mutually beneficial versus the perceived, can I pick your brain conversation or can we be friends conversation, which is also like very endearing, but there's something even more elevated about saying, I'm getting all these cool people together. And by the way, I think you're cool. And I'd like you to come to that too.
Yes. That's what I tell my friends. I'm like, look, if you want people to like you, you have to do cool stuff. And if you want to do something cool, host a party. It's not hard and anybody can do it. You just have to step up and do it.
Yeah. So you have you don't have you have a very, very cut and dry, very clear, amazing framework for putting together parties and some rules that you have. Can you give us the rundown of what these rules are and why they're in place? That way we can have really good clarity on how easy this can be and how structured it is in order to benefit everyone involved.
Absolutely. Okay, so think about my party formula like my name. My name is Nick, N-I-C-K. My party formula, the Nick party formula. N stands for name tags. I think everybody at the party has to wear a name tag. I can talk more about that if you want to know.
Oh, we want to know.
Yes, let's do name tags next. But
Okay.
first, I'm going to go through the formula.
Go ahead.
I stands for icebreakers. You're going to do 3 rounds of icebreakers at your party. These are conversational prompts. People are awkward. They not only help people start new conversations, but they also help people end their conversations. You ever been to a party and you get trapped talking to somebody? You're like, I'm so done here. Well, when you do icebreakers, that's a prompt that gives people an excuse to eject from that conversation. NIC stands for cocktails or non-alcoholic drinks only, no food. This is not a dinner party. Dinner parties, you're seated. Sitting down is the kryptonite to a successful party. So C is for cocktails or non-alcoholic drinks only. K stands for kick them out at the end. It's only 2 hours long. It's a 2-hour party. When you do that, you respect your guest calendars. They show up on time because when you list both a start and an end time, people show up on time. And then you'll end the night feeling stress-free, like, oh, I can do this. That was great. Not like, oh, it's midnight. I got to go to bed. I got to wake up. My apartment's a mess. It's so much better.
Okay. Well, let's break each of those down and why you put these pieces into place, because I think they're each so important. And by the way, I am a huge name tag fan.
Really?
I've always said, like, I just wish everyone wore name tags. It would
Yes.
make it so much more easy to be personal with someone. So
Yes.
break down the formula for us. Give us some details into those steps if you want.
Great. N for name tags. You got to have name tags. And I also think about the people that are a little socially awkward or introverted or shy or have social anxiety, because I want them to feel safe and I want them to feel comfortable and I want them to come to my party. A party with a bunch of extroverts sounds terrible. When you have a mixed group of people at your party, the name tags help show that there's no cliques, that there's no groups. This is a welcome space. The name tags are like jerseys on a sports team. We're all on this team together. It's a safe place to go say hello and meet somebody. They also just reduce the stress of having to remember somebody's name, all that awkwardness. It's great. You got to do name tags even for your social gatherings with friends.
I totally agree. I am bought in. I think that every event should have a name tag.
Now, some simple pro tips about name tags. Yeah. First of all, on my website, I list, if you just search like Nick Gray name tags, you'll find my article. I've bought dozens of different types of name tags. I can tell you the ones that I like. The number one I like are the ones that I'm wearing. If you're watching this video, there's also another Avery name tag that I like. Both can be purchased online. You are only going to write their first name in huge block letters. So that's number one, first names only. 2, don't pre-write the name tags. That's not good. You want to do them at that moment. And then number 3 is everybody has to wear a name tag. Like, don't let somebody be jokey with it. Be like, oh, I'll write Batman for my name. Everybody's got to do the name tag. And generally, it should be someplace that's visible that everybody can see very clearly. So those are my quick name tag tips.
Yes. Love it. All right. So do you have anything else that you want to dive into with any of the other parts of the acronym that you're like, oh, these are really important pieces of the puzzle that I really want you to know? I mean, everything is listed in the book. The book is very great detail.
I'm just trying to tell stuff. Let me just think. You should make sure you send a series of 3 reminder messages. We want people to all show up, and you're going to keep your party top of mind when you send these series of 3 reminder messages. Oh, a secret weapon that I have is these guest bios. I just wrote some today for a party I'm helping with. They're brief little blurbs about all the guests at your party. It should take you 25 minutes maximum to write. One could be, Amanda is a coach who helps women go into a new life without alcohol to gain social confidence. Ask her about her podcast. Or one could be like, Neville, I just met him. I moved here to Austin. I think he has 2 dogs and he rides a moped. Ask him about his moped. You're just giving people conversational access points, maybe mentioning what they do for work, but you're increasing the amount of excitement for people coming to your party by reading about all these other people there.
Yes. And I think you're showing your involvement with these people. You're just showing what a generous person you are and a thoughtful person as a host, that you've gone so far to think about this, about everyone. Well, not everyone, but like a core group of people that you're sharing a little bit more about them.
Yes, and your guests are then going to see that you're a host who cares. You
Mhm.
actually care. This isn't a random, just like spray and pray invitation, show up at my house. You're going to be an organized host, and people are going to respect the hell out of you for this.
Yes, yes. And then the other thing that I really love is the icebreaker. So can you give us an example? And for introverts, like this is heavenly because you don't have to necessarily hold your own and start conversations. You're bouncing off of a pre-designed icebreaker. So can you tell us one of your favorite icebreakers that you like to use at your parties?
One of my favorite icebreakers is the icebreaker that works 100% of the time. And I'm going to tell your listeners this. Do not try to get cute with this.
Mm-mm.
Do not try to say, "Oh, what's the worst first date you ever went on? Oh, what type of drink?" No, just do an icebreaker that always works. I've done thousands of icebreakers. The one that always works to start the night when there's not enough there's not enough rapport built, is just say your name, say what you do for work, and say one of your favorite things that you like to eat for breakfast. If you don't eat breakfast, then tell us why. Why does the breakfast icebreaker always work? It's fast. It doesn't take a lot of thinking. You ate or didn't eat breakfast that day. There's generally positive memories, right? And it's not judgmental. Somebody's not going to judge you. It's
Mhm.
not like, what's your favorite book, which is very subjective. It's definitive. By the way, that an easy way to change that to be not such a bad icebreaker would be, what is one of your favorite books? But when
Mm-hmm.
you go to the definitive answer, people freeze up and they're like, oh, people are going to think. So
No,
I like that one.
I love the breakfast idea because people love to talk about food and food is such a passionate thing for most people that like recounting it just loosens you up too and it's so unintimidating. You're not saying how do you like your steak cooked or are you vegan or not? It's what do you like for breakfast? And breakfast is typically like a cozy meal that kind of starts your day off, right? So that I love
Heck
that.
yeah.
So brilliant. So brilliant.
So that's the first icebreaker. After
Mhm.
you've built up a little rapport, then later you'll ask something like an advanced icebreaker. The one that I like to use is, what's the best piece of media or one of the best pieces of media that you've consumed recently? That could be a
Mm.
podcast like this, a Netflix show, a movie, a book that you read, an article, a tweet that made you think, a meme. But what's something that you saw, one of the best pieces of media? And oh my gosh, that works so well because everybody goes around the room. Once again, they say their name, what they do for work, and one of their best pieces of media. And everybody's like making the room a little smarter. The room
Mhm.
comes alive with these great suggestions.
Yes, and you're doing this on mass, right? So can you tell us about how many people you are recommending for these parties just so people have a really good idea?
The right amount is 15 to 20 people. Less
Mhm.
than 15, and the room won't have enough energy and excitement. There's not enough cross connections. Less than 15, and it is so much more work for you as a host. You have to babysit a lot more people.
Mhm.
More than 20, and the icebreakers take a little too long. For a first time host, it's a little bit too much to manage.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think that everyone will skip over the C because we already know we're gonna get maybe some cocktails, maybe BYOB,
Well, the
maybe
important
do
thing is don't do
mocktails.
dinner. Don't do
Yes,
dinner.
yes. And
People are not eating the food. Do not use this as
mhm.
a chance to make a mega Costco haul. You'll be shocked, but it's about the people in the conversation. So consistently from everybody that I work with for parties, they always say, people did not eat as much food as I thought.
Exactly. And you give a very concise. I was actually laughing. I'm like, wow, Nick, this is like this many bags of chips that are this ounces. I'm like, yes, this is what a control freak like me needs to know for the party list. So all that you need to know about what types of snacks to get are in Nick's book. But I would still imagine a lot of that is just left untouched because people are having such a good time, jiving and vibing together that they don't even bother with it.
Yes, and one of the most popular snacks does tend to be grapes. I learned that one. Grapes, people just like to snack on grapes. It's
Yeah.
nice.
Easy to pop in your mouth, doesn't leave any residue on your hand. I see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Good.
nice. It's a little finger food.
All right. So then the last one, which also my introverts are going to love, is kicking people out. What is your pro tip to get people the hell out of your house once it's time to go?
My mom loved this. She hosted a party for her friends and her neighbors recently, and she loved this part. So kicking people out. What you're gonna do is you're gonna make 15 minutes. Well, first of all, let me just say this. When you list a start and an end time for your party, you're already going to set the expectation that your party's ending. So
Mhm.
already just by doing that, with a lot of my party planning, by setting the expectations, it just things fall in place like you wouldn't believe.
Mhm.
About 15 minutes before your party's scheduled to end, I will make an announcement. I'll turn the music down, I'll make my little sound, and I'll say, "Hey, everybody, thank you so much for coming tonight. We're having so much fun. I said this party's going to end, so I want to respect your time. About 15 minutes, we'll start to wrap up. So if you want to grab another drink or say hi to somebody new, I'll talk to you again in 15 minutes."
Mhm.
And then at the time of the parties, I'll turn the lights up, I'll turn the music off, and I'll say, "Hey, thank you everybody for coming today. I host these parties because I want to introduce new friends together. We live in such a great city like this, bringing people together. It's hard to make new friends. Hope you got a chance to say hi to somebody new. Thank you guys for coming. I hope you'll come again next time, and I'll see you soon." And then, people do like a clap or something. And then you just kind of transition into tidying up, helping people move out. And in 10, 15, 20 minutes, you'll be surprised. Everybody should leave.
Yeah, I love that. It's just, I think that's the a party thrower's biggest fear is that people won't leave.
Yeah.
But you are telling people to host parties on what specific days so that that's also less of a problem.
Amanda, you're so good. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights only.
Yes.
This is when you're going to host the party,
Mhm.
because that's how people know it's not an excuse to stay up till midnight. You're going to host it then, and they come in, they come out. It's an easy invitation. They don't
Mhm.
feel locked in on something like that. One last thing I will say, though, because sometimes you'll get this at a party. "Oh, Amanda, I haven't seen you in forever. Oh, we didn't get a chance to talk at your party. Can we talk? Can we hang out?" And, it's important to keep track of your goals. And the biggest thing that I'll tell you is that the most successful people are those that can make hosting a habit.
Mm.
What does that mean? It means you kind of always have your next party scheduled on the calendar. Maybe you're hosting one of these happy hours every 6 weeks or so. And for you to make that a habit, you need to end on time. You need to run this like a process, sort of. I hate to
Mhm.
say that, but that's true. If you're serious about your social life and you're serious about bringing value to your friends and connections, you got to be serious about this. And so, what I will say is, I'll be like, "Oh my God, Gene, it was so good to see you. I really would like to catch up, but I'm trying to work on this party hosting thing and I need to tidy up and I got to stick to my bedtime. Can I call you tomorrow? Because I would like to catch up. I haven't seen you in forever. May I call you tomorrow and we can have a phone call?" That helps the person feel seen.
Mm.
It
Mhm.
acknowledges them. It shows them that you want to be friends, but you just kind of move it forward.
Yes. Nick, were you always this? So here's some things that I've noticed about you and some things that need to be in place or that will be in place. I wouldn't say need to be in place, but that you will get better at. But I see that, to stop a party and make an announcement for 20 people or so, some of them who you know well, some of them who you're getting to know or wanting to impress maybe a little bit, you have to have some confidence and some ability to speak extemporaneously and give a announcement, and also these little scripts, these boundary setting scripts, if you will, that you're offering to people. Is this something that just came supernaturally to you, or did you have to work to get this skill in place as you became a host with the most?
I did have to work on it. That's why I wrote this book. I hosted literally hundreds of parties, and this is the formula that I've settled on and that I've trained other people on.
Mm-hmm.
So even saying little things like that phrase, I'll say, "Oh, administrative announcement, everybody." Just, it's a funny thing. Or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes after I make a little announcement and do some structure, I'll say something like, "All right, everybody, we're going back into unstructured time." And it's a little joke, but it always gets laughs.
Yes, I just think that that is such a skill that can be had, and I just want to remind everyone that it's a muscle that you flex and you get better over time. I'm sure your very first party, you didn't come out of the gate with this
Right.
same, confidence and probably the same enthusiasm, but maybe not the same confidence. And you will get better the more that you do this. So, what I would love to know from you is, as you've become more established in as a party host, as this has become part of your identity, how have your relationships and your confidence changed as you've created this new lifestyle for yourself?
I remember I was working with this woman, Mary Beth, who was in Mexico City, and she hosted her first two parties. And Mary Beth said she went to another party, having hosted two of her own parties, and the party was a little bit boring. And she was like, I'm gonna do some icebreakers at this party. And she found herself getting a little group together. She ran an icebreaker. And she sent me an email that night. She's like, dude, you will never guess what I did. I led an icebreaker at this party. Like I stepped up and I did this, which I thought was absolutely incredible. And I see that same thing. I talk about it in my book, just the social confidence that I have of working in groups and seeing group dynamics. I'll give you one example. Many times people will not want to do an icebreaker at the party because they don't want to interrupt people. They're like, oh, look around the room. Everybody's having so much fun. I don't want to borrow this. I don't want to interrupt everybody. Well, your role at the party is to the party as a whole, not to one individual person that might be having a conversation. And I know now as a host to lead with generous authority and to give people the leadership that is often lacking from social situations. And people really appreciate it. And I know that because I've hosted so much.
I love it. Yes, generous authority. I dig that as a persona you take on, because it is so kind to create this structure for people. You're actually doing them a tremendous service by giving them these moments of icebreakers and context and kind of rules to follow. It's really like a nicety that you're offering as a host.
I think I learned about that phrase, generous authority, from a woman named Priya Parker, who wrote this book called The Art of Gathering. Have you read that book?
No.
It's a really good book. My book is very practical and tactical. It lists the exact scripts, what to text your friends, how to make the party invite. Priya talks very theoretical about why do we gather? What's the purpose of gathering? Great book. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Okay. I have two more questions in terms of, creating this community. So one of the biggest anxieties that my community has is that where will I find like-minded people? And, I could see that even being amplified when they have to think, where will I find 20 like-minded people to invite to my party? So where are some places that you can stretch your imagination where you can meet these people and start to cultivate this, group of people that you're going to invite to your party?
So let's keep in mind that for your first party, we want it to be a low stakes affair because you want to practice just running the routines, the scripts, hosting a party. And so for your first party, I suggest that you think about those friends, those neighbors, those close allies, those colleagues that you worked with, maybe people you went to high school or college with, to practice. And generally, you can ask them to bring a guest. Note that the key phrase here is that you want them to bring someone, not to invite someone. There's a subtle but important difference in that. And if they say that they'll bring someone, say, perfect, we have them please RSVP on this page. Have them do it too, right? So like a social contract. Later, as you start to host more parties and grow your circle, you can ask for referrals from your friends. You can ask them to, hey, would you please bring someone? I'm hosting this to meet new people. You can attend events yourself. Generally, I find that in going to something like a yoga class or a sports activity, that's common advice. Folks say that a lot. But you basically have two shots to invite somebody at an event like that. You can talk to somebody before the event starts, and you can basically talk to one person after it's over, because otherwise everybody splits up and kind of goes their own way. You can meet other people at parties. You can meet them at meetups. You can look for Facebook groups. You can join sports teams. I heard a funny hack, which was my friend said that for joining sports teams, he joins a kickball league because they have the biggest team sizes. And he wanted to meet new people, so he joined kickball because the teams are enormous and everybody goes out drinking, both sides, or they all go out for like a seltzer or something afterwards. And it's both your team and the other person's team. And he said that was where I could meet the most amount of people.
So smart. And, even with something like a yoga class, I teach my clients that those are really excellent. Even if you are only able to talk to one person, that's one more person you're connected to, right? One more person you get to invite. So I always tell my clients to go to yoga, show up 10 minutes early to the gym. I've been doing this for years. And I always try to talk to one new person who I don't recognize before the class starts. And that's a great opportunity. If you went 5 days a week, that's 5 different people that you're inviting. And within 3 weeks, you've got your party put together. If you just start to kind of put yourself out there and do some little uncomfortable things to grow your network.
You'll be shocked, just like we're talking about meeting, 1, 2, 3 people every week. One of the things I talk about in my book is the idea of the party runway,
Mm,
giving yourself a full 3 weeks planning time for your
mhm.
first party,
Yeah.
which will give you plenty of time to fill up your list of RSVPs. Well, then for your next party, you'll know after the party, hopefully it's a success. A week later, you'll schedule your next date. Maybe it's 4 weeks in advance. And now you have a whole month to fill up your list of RSVPs. You will be shocked. This is another thing I constantly hear from people. They're like, I don't have enough time. I don't know enough people. I'm going to set it for 5 weeks out. And literally a week later, they've filled up their RSVPs and
Mhm.
now they have 4 weeks to stress. They're like, why didn't I do it sooner?
Yes, yes. I think that we make things so much more difficult than they have to be, which is why everything that you line up in your book is so helpful and practical. And um, wait, I did have two more questions. Okay, let
Oh,
me
yeah,
let me
good.
remember what these are. Okay.
Okay.
So one is I would, I believe the concept of we become the people who we most frequently surround ourselves with, or the five people who we spend the most time with. It's who we become. Can
Mhm.
you tell us how you have expanded and stretched as a person through now surrounding yourself with allowing yourself to the challenge to surround yourself with different people?
I love surrounding myself with more inspiring people. One journey that I'm on is on physical fitness. I really need to work out more. And so I want to surround myself with people who are more physically active.
Hmm.
As I've been launching my book, I've been reconnecting with friends that are authors and have gone through successful book launches as well. Running my business, I would be in a lot of business groups. I would join groups for other CEOs and entrepreneurs. Yeah, that's 100% that you gotta surround yourself. It's the thing, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Be
Hmm.
aware of that. Be careful who you let into your life.
Yeah. And then you and I were talking before we got started because one thing that I just really want to share is that you said you haven't drank in the last 2 years. So all of these parties that you've been hosting have been relatively alcohol free for you.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you said, which is really important because this podcast is all about achieving our potential, is one specific time in your life where you had a big milestone that you wanted to reach and you decided, I'm not going to drink up
Yeah.
until I get this milestone. Can you tell us that story and why you made that decision?
Yes. So my last business was called Museum Hack. We did renegade museum tours. What that means is I would hire like stand-up comedians and Broadway actors at the Metropolitan Museum of Art to be the tour guides. And they would tell you the juicy gossip and the backstories about the art, how much things cost, all the taboo stuff. And I was a tour guide myself. I've led over 1,000 museum tours at the Metropolitan Museum. And part of the tours was, you'd bring a flask, it'd be a little sneaky, you let people drink on the tours or something. And I'm working, right? I can't do that. I can't drink all the time. But then people come, they're like, oh, bro, I haven't seen you in forever. Come on, it's been 3 years. I'd be like, okay, I'd make one exception. And then the next night I'm on tour. Dude, it's my girlfriend's birthday. Come on, you have to drink. It's like, okay, fine. And eventually it was just easier for me to say, I had to say, just it's kind of all or nothing because you
Mhm.
can't make each of these individual decisions when to drink or when not to drink. And so I made the decision. I said, I'm not going to drink until my company hits $1 million in revenue, which was crazy. At the time, I think we were only doing maybe 200 grand or something. It wasn't doing that much. And so everybody in the company knew that I could say that to people when they asked. I said, I'm not going to drink until I hit $1 million. And that was an honorable goal. And people really respected that. And it helped and served me big time.
That's so rad. And I love that you acknowledged and that you knew in your head that making the individual decisions of when to drink and when not to drink it was basically a waste of your energy too.
Oh,
Like if you
it's
have big things to
exhausting.
do, yeah, you can't be making these little micro decisions. So it's just easier if you have big shit to do in your life to
Yes.
say it's a no right now.
It's a
And
hard no. I could wake up so much easier. I could work. I was more sharp. It was way better. Wait, and I
yes,
haven't drank for 2.5 years. I don't miss it. It's great.
yeah, and you are truly a social butterfly. You are I keep now that I've run into you, I see you out and about all over the
Uh-huh.
place
Uh-huh.
and you're hosting these great parties and teaching other people to do it. So I want to do something fun. This is off the cuff. but I will personally buy a couple copies of the book for anyone who, if you feel like you've learned something today, if you feel like you're up for the challenge, even if it feels scary, if you will screenshot this episode and share something you learned, I will track Nick down. We're both in Austin, so we'll have that green tea. I will get a couple signed copies. And if you screenshot it and share the episode and tag me and Nick, and we'll talk about his social media handle in just a second, I'll send a couple books out because I think it's so rad. It's such a helpful template for people.
Thanks for saying that. And it's a thing of giving. If you work with Amanda privately, if you're on her coaching program, and if this is something that you're like, you know what, I want to host my first happy hour. And if you're working with her on this and you set that goal and you accept the challenge at the end of my book, I will personally help you out. I will review your RSVP page. I will cheer you along. Send Amanda an email. She can link us up and connect. But I'm on this goal to get 500 people to host a party for their friends, neighbors, and colleagues.
Yes.
And I think that it's hard to make friends as an adult, and nobody teaches you how to do that. But I think by hosting gatherings like this, which, by the way, you can do a clothing swap, you can do a book swap, you can do a networking event, you can do a picnic in a park. All of these things you can do. My book is just a formula to tell you how to make that a success. So
ooh, I love all those other ideas. Those are amazing little ways that you can like zhuzh it up a little bit and have a little extra context to your party.
100%. There's so many ways that we can gather. We need it too. Huh.
Yes. And if you are feeling, so many of you have expressed to me, I feel lost socially. This is the biggest fear that people have when they give up drinking. When you are feeling most lost and most alone, the best thing you can do is belong yourself. And what better way to belong yourself than to bring a group of people together and just take the initiative? Stop waiting for other people to throw a party. You can throw a rad ass party by yourself, my friends.
Yes.
You can. All right, Nick, tell us where we can find you. Tell us where we can find your book. And then we will close things out here today. Or if there's anything else you want to share, drop it now.
In general, you can get a summary of my book online at my website, nickgray.net. I made this whole microsite for my book that lists an executive summary. You get the first chapter for free. That website is www.party.pro, P-R-O. And then I have this cool thing called a friends newsletter. I send out every couple of weeks whenever I have cool stuff to share. So you got to check that out. And then I'm on social. Please watch my Instagram stories. I love sharing on Instagram. And my social is at Nick Gray News, News.
Yes. And tag Nick and me at Amanda Kuda when you listen to this episode, and we will give away to you we'll pull a couple drawings and do some signed books to you.
Great.
Awesome. Nick, thank you so much for being here today. I know that the formula you have laid out is going to help so many people just in this community, but obviously in the communities beyond, throw really awesome, high caliber parties and really take the intimidation out of doing it. So rad what you're doing. I really appreciate you coming and sharing today.
Thank you. And thanks to all your listeners. Hey, if you like this podcast, leave her a 5-star review. It'd be much appreciated.
Ooh, thank you. You're hired. You're on the team. Okay. Oops, let me end the recording here.